found a ring, and he was working on hundreds of acres. And I said, that's going to be the only thing you have there. But he found a wedding ring, and it was dated 1923, I believe. And I have a letter from that. Some of these I have letters from. Almost everything I do, I try to get a letter of reference from people so I can verify, confirm that I did do it. And most of the time I get along with the treasure hunters. Right now I'm working on some big stuff all over the U.S. And I'm going to drag Gypsy there for boots on the ground. And we'll see where we go.
Awesome.
So that gives you a general idea of some of the things I've done. So does anybody have a quick question?
We have lots of questions in the chat, and I think we've got everybody drooling over, oh my, I've got this treasure in my area that I would love to find, this treasure in my area. So you may be picking up a lot of new clients.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, I do charge a fee, and then I charge a commission finding it. But I tell people you've got to select a landmark, and I know that sounds odd. Maybe that's my approach, but I find that landmarks are really, really necessary, whether your car becomes the landmark or point A, and then you put your compass on 0 and go in the degrees where my dowsing says to go. I do very well, but I tell people don't sit on it for years. I mean, I have people that call me that the only thing they own is a little orange pointer. I have people that call me that buy equipment that haven't tried it out. So you absolutely use the Garrett. Go call Gypsy and ask her how to use the Garrett. Call Garrett, get instructions. Don't let your metal detector sit there for years. You could buy another house.
We did have a question from Tom in chat that wanted to know a little bit about the equipment involved. I'm guessing it's the talking about maybe the dowsing rods or.
Okay, so if you can't find them, which you can, there's the American Society of Dowsers, and you can call them. They have the L rods. They have what's called a bobber. I use pendulums. I sell pendulums. They're not very expensive. But you do need the metal detecting to go out and confirm. The exciting news is some of my clients are using the drones with magnetometers now. I believe, does John have Gypsy, does he have a LiDAR already?
He has something very similar, yes, and he has several drones.
So you want to pull out the big guns.
Capability.
Right. So you want to pull out the big guns when you're going after something really big. I mean, I almost want to say we psychics are being replaced by LiDAR, but it costs a lot of money. So if you're going to do something, definitely get a pendulum, take some training from the American Society of Dowsers. Sometimes I give classes in it. Remote viewing, I send people to Angela Ford, who worked in the government with my father, or down the hall from my father. Angela did Stargate. Yes, I know some more high-profile people, but at least you know when you do the work, typically you're going to find something if it's there. So let's say you have 200 cases, and we pick out which case you have that will work and have silver bars or gold coins, that kind of thing. One thing I've noticed that, for example, one case with Jesse James, when he buried his coinage in little leather pouches, unfortunately, the tree grew up, and the tree kept getting higher and higher, and the items were sort of attached to the roots. I've seen that before, where people, some federal agents went out trying to find the gold coins, but you really have to sort of dig holes under the tree somehow and use your pointer or use whatever equipment you can. I tell people you really should, if you're really going to do this seriously and you really want to make some money, I would highly recommend putting some money in some good quality equipment that goes 2 to 4 feet, 2 to 7 feet. This stuff where you say, oh, I have one that goes 6 inches. Well, the historical mysteries out there are not going to be 6 inches. That's just that's very rare. What do you think, Gypsy?
Right. Your stuff, a lot of stuff you're going to have GPR equipment. You're going to need maybe a 2-box machine, a machine that has the capability of finding the large, deep objects, for sure.
Right. Especially if you're going after the good stuff.
Right.
I mean,
and we have several more questions for you in chat.
Well, I was going to say,
so go ahead and
too, for that last thing you were saying. So I know up here we have a lot of bedrock that's not that far down, as well as, depending on where you are, you've got that hard pack clay layer. So I know that helps, but I know that that's not in the entirety of the country.
No. In Maryland, there's a lot of mud too, and they have some treasure over there. But when I treasure hunt, I select a very small area and I go for it. When I was in New England, we found pieces from the ship from 350 AD. I mean, that's pretty impressive. We haven't gone public on it yet. I think I want to do 2 or 3 things next, and then I want to just hit it and talk to the press about all 3. And then we have to give everything to the state where the items were found, so we can show it to the social media, and then we're going to have to turn it over. You can't keep it. But on gold coins and that kind of thing, I have a client, and he swears that some of his coinage that he's going after, some of them could be worth as much as $60,000. I have a friend who found a coin on the beach, and it turned out to be appraised at $90,000. So don't assume you're going to find $2,500 in a coin. You'd be surprised what kind of fantastic magic happens.
Right. That's so true when it comes to coin versus just the value of gold, which gold is really high right now. And these coins can be worth, especially depending on the rarity, millions of dollars for just one. I mean, it could keep going up. We had several more questions. One in particular, a good friend of mine was asking, his name is Dennis, in chat. Him and I were looking for something. It's a large cache. There's possibly 2 caches buried on the property. He did loads of historical research, and I know he's been waiting for me to ask you something about it. He's just now back. Somehow he lost audio for a minute. But he now travels in an RV and does his metal detecting and treasure hunting while traveling. But this is a place where we are pretty sure that there is a large cache of gold and stuff. And I was helping him metal detect the property. And it was extremely hot day in Texas. And I swung the metal detector along the area where we thought it was, and this rattlesnake struck at my coil, my Garrett coil, as I swung by, and I kind of took that as an omen.
Take a break.
To take a break, because poor Dennis, he was about to pass out with the heat exhaustion, so he went on back to the truck about the time that so we've been talking about going back, and he says he has some maps he wants to show you and pics. And I would love to go back and help him dig it up. I've told him before I don't care about keeping anything. He's already got a contract with the property owner and everything. But I'm sure he said he would love to hire you for that project. So I would love to be a part of it too, just to be tag along and metal detect. So.
Yeah, it's, the thing about people is when I have to tell you this one thing I forgot to tell you. When I go after treasure, I write down what I call the wish list. So let's say it's an Al Capone treasure from a brothel or robbery or something like that. I write down, for the focus of my brain, I say we're looking for gold coins, silver coins. You can say the word money. I literally list it. I say diamonds because I know that Capone was paid in diamonds and did robberies with diamonds with Frank Nitti. And actually on this particular case, Frank Nitti actually hid the goodies. And we wonder if that was part of Frank and Al's portion of the robbery. And so I write the wish list, and I think about it, and I say, show me, show me, show me. That's my magic word, which is a part of quantum physics. And I say, now what I want to do is focus in on the wish list. So let's say for example, let's say it's an American Indian find that they were killed and left there, and they buried a treasure, let's say 1800s. Unfortunately, even the Spanish and the Mexicans, when I say Mexicans, historically from the 18 and early 1900s, they would kill people and leave them with the treasure to spiritually protect the treasure from being stolen. And it's so odd, but I do write a wish list, and I tell people that's really important because your focus is really, really important, that you're not going to be focusing on a dead person. But if you have to, you can say skeletal remains, but you can be taken 10 feet over, have skeletal remains. So you have to do the area of 10 or 20 feet radius because some of these people won't be wearing a belt buckle from the era. And then if it's American Indian, they could be wearing something that could attract the metal detector. So it depends. But I tell everybody, write your, you could call it a magic list. I call it the wish list of everything I'm trying to find. And when I do true crime and try to locate missing people, I do the same thing. And I try to write down the address. This is the address. So I write down my cheat sheet, and I call it who, what, when, where, how. And I write down the address, who am I working for, and whose is it. Like if you don't know who it belonged to, you could say civilian, or you could say colonel from Mexico. Or you could say, but it helps you focus. That sounds really goofy, but after being so successful at doing this, once I realized, my God, I'm consistently doing this again and again and again, and it hasn't stopped. Of course, people call and say, okay, I've got 30 maps. And I've had people, when they call, I'm like, I don't get anything on any of your maps. And they're insistent. No, there's something here. I said, well, sorry. You pay me for my time, but I don't get anything. Get 30 more maps, so I don't want to disappoint, but I'm not going to send you for boots on the ground if I don't think there's going to be anything there.
Right.
That's totally just, like the guys in North Carolina, when they found that ring, they'd been out in the heat for days. And it was one of those days where it was like 110 degrees in North Carolina. And they finally called me and said, okay, where's the treasure? And I had to say, sorry, there's no treasure, just this one item. But I will tell you, I didn't know what the item was. So I wrote down on my wish list, gold coins. They were going after the Confederate gold. And I said, I just don't see it. Normally, if I get a big reaction, I literally in my eyes see the color green. And I define what each color means. So if I see purple or red, I know somebody's going to get hurt in the field. And that has come true so many times. I'm like, oh, God, take a snake kit with you. Take those Johnson & Johnson medical kits with you, whether you need stitches or hold it in place with any kind of medical supplies. Hold your cut in place or the snake bite in place and rush to the hospital. But so I have seen that also, but it hasn't failed me. It's a very consistent color in my head. And I tell people, if you happen to see a color, great. But again, not everybody has synesthesia. Only 4% of the world has it. And so if you don't have it, it's okay. But if you happen to feel the color green, like it's an Irish color green, it's the Kelly green. And it really has paid off for me. But also, the wish list really makes a difference. All right. So let's go with one at a time. What other questions do you have? I mean, if you have something, be determined. Get out there and go do it.
Definitely. Let's see. Do you have some questions that you saw, Amanda?
I just saw a recent one. It's again from Tom. What are some of the most unusual non-treasure items you've been asked to find?
Non-treasure. Well, I've had people call me where the wife got mad at the husband and threw a wedding ring in the yard. that's still that's still a treasure. I'm trying to think. I find missing pets